A sickening crack echoed across the narrow street as the teenage boy's arm snapped at the elbow. He screamed, collapsing to the ground, clutching his limp arm. The towering black belt thug stood over him, smirking without remorse. "This is what happens when you say no," the man growled, loud enough for the block to hear. "Anyone else feel brave today?" The boy, just 17, thin but stubbornly proud, had refused to pay protection money. No father, no backup, just a tiny corner shop and a spine stronger than most grown men. He said no and paid the price. The thug wasn't just a street bully, he was a trained fighter, a local tyrant who beat people for sport and ruled through fear. His GI-style jacket flared in the breeze, black belt tied like a badge of dominance. No one moved. Shoppers froze, vendors stared, some recorded with shaking hands, but no one stepped in. No one dared. Except one man. Tom Cruise had been standing nearby, quietly watching from across the street, cap pulled low, plain dark jacket blending in. He looked like any passerby until now. His eyes locked on the teen curled on the ground, jaw clenched, fists closed, breathing deepened. When the thug kicked the boy again, hard, driving his heel into the teen's ribs, Tom's body moved before his brain could speak. He stepped off the sidewalk, slow and controlled, walking straight toward the scene. The thug turned, confused. "You want some too, old man?" Tom said nothing. He stopped beside the kid, eyes never leaving the thug. With one motion, he slipped off his jacket, letting it fall to the ground. The street hushed, phones stopped shaking, and for the first time all day, the thug looked nervous. The street buzzed with grit and resilience, tucked between rusted rooftops and sun-faded billboards. Vendors shouted over honking bikes, old men played cards, women haggled over fruit. It was a place built on struggle, held together by quiet dignity. Everyone knew everyone, names mattered, favors lasted generations. But beneath the chatter, a silent fear pulsed. People checked corners before speaking, shops closed early, conversations halted when a certain figure passed. No one said his name aloud, but everyone knew who ruled the block. The black belt thug, real name unknown, was more than a fighter, a predator with technique. Broad-shouldered, tattooed, dressed in a sleeveless martial arts gi modified for the streets, he carried himself like a man who'd never been hit harder than he could hit back. Feared for his fists, hated for his pride, he ran a protection racket disguised as community security. Once a promising martial artist, he'd fallen into the underworld, selling his skills to gangs, collecting debts, breaking bones for reputation. Corner shops, food stalls, pharmacies, anyone earning an honest living was fair game. He never asked twice. Until today. The shop was a faded shutterfront store with shelves of instant noodles, canned goods, and cheap detergent. Behind the counter stood a skinny, dark-haired teenager, maybe 17, eyes tired but proud. His name was Ion, orphaned 2 years ago after losing both parents in a truck accident. He'd taken over the family store alone, refusing help or pity, working open to close every day. Everyone respected him, the kind of boy you nodded to, trusted with your change, wished had more luck. Today, luck ran out. He refused to pay, politely, calmly, firmly. "My father never paid," he said, "and neither will I." Those words sealed his fate. Across the street, Tom Cruise leaned against a cracked wall outside a repair shop, arms folded, face blank, dressed in a gray zip-up hoodie, cap pulled low. He looked like any local. He'd been watching the street for minutes, gaze sweeping the stalls, the faces, the tension. When the thug turned the corner and locked eyes on the teen's shop, Tom's stance shifted slightly, arms dropped, head tilted, jaw tightened. He'd seen men like this before. Something bad was coming. The thug stepped into the shop like he owned it, presence filling the room before his voice. He tapped the dusty counter, scanned the canned goods, then spoke, voice dripping with false charm. "Where's my cut, little man?" Ion stood steady behind the counter. I told you last time. My father never paid, and I'm not starting now. The thug chuckled, nodding, then leaned in, grin turning cold. Yeah, your father was a proud man. Look where that got him, 6 feet under with an empty bank account. Ion flinched but said nothing. The thug clicked his tongue, picking up the small plastic tip jar beside the register. This all you've made today? Sad, bro, real sad. He shook the jar, coins rattling. What you gonna do when someone smashes your window? Who you gonna call, the cops? Ion's voice came low, steady. I'll deal with it myself. Wrong answer. The thug dropped the jar, coins scattering across the floor. He took a slow step around the counter, inches from Ion. You're either real brave or real stupid. Ion stood his ground, shoulders squared, trembling slightly. I'm not giving you anything. This shop's all I've got, and I won't let you take it. A pause, just long enough for hope to slip in. Then the thug's hand moved. A slap cracked across Ion's face, sharp and loud. The boy stumbled, crashing into the shelf behind him. Glass jars tumbled, one shattered. Before he could recover, the thug grabbed him by the collar and hurled him forward. Ion's body slammed onto the ground with a thud. He tried to get up, but the man dropped a knee onto his shoulder. The sound that followed was grotesque. Ion screamed as his arm bent the wrong way, elbow dislocated, bones shifting. He curled in on himself, face twisted in agony, gasping for breath. The thug stood, towering, unfazed. This is what happens when you forget your place. Outside, a crowd formed, not close, no one dared, but a loose ring of silent witnesses. Shopkeepers, customers, an old man on a stool, a delivery boy on his scooter. Phones were out, but not a single person moved. They'd seen this man break bigger men than the kid on the floor. Bruised faces, broken noses, shattered egos, every time someone resisted, this was the result. No one helped then. No one helped now. Across the street, Tom Cruise stepped off the wall. He crossed the road slowly, each step measured, eyes fixed on the boy crumpled on the floor. The pain in the teen's face, pure and raw, hit him like a punch to the chest. The thug turned as Tom approached, eyebrow raised. What's this, back up, he scoffed. Get lost, Grandpa. Tom didn't answer. He knelt beside Ion, movements quiet, deliberate. One hand gently lifted the boy's head, the other steadied his broken arm. Ion winced but didn't resist. Tom looked him in the eye. You're okay, he said softly. You held your ground. The boy nodded through clenched teeth, tears streaking his cheeks. Then Tom stood. Take 2 steps forward, stopped, facing the thug head-on. No expression, no threat. He reached up, grabbed his jacket collar, and pulled it off. It fell to the pavement behind him. The silence grew heavy. The thug let out a sharp bark of laughter, tossing his head back. His shoulders rolled, arms loose as he stepped forward, sizing Tom up. You serious right now? He said, shaking his head. You look like someone's tired uncle rolled in from a long shift at the docks. He pointed to Tom's hoodie on the ground. What's that? Gonna fold it up neatly after I drop you, old man? The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure if they were watching a beatdown or something else. The thug leaned in, voice lowering to a taunting growl. I don't know what fantasy you're living in, but this is real life. And in real life, people like you get put in the ground for stepping where you don't belong. Tom didn't blink. Let me guess, the thug continued, you saw your little action movies, threw a couple kicks in the mirror, thought you were invincible, huh? He moved closer, nose inches from Tom's face. I'm a black belt, old man. I've broken real fighters. You? You're just another idiot looking to be famous in someone's viral video. Tom's eyes didn't move. That silence wasn't hesitation, it was calculation. A few more seconds passed. The thug, unable to get a rise, stepped back and spread his arms. Well? What now? Tom stared, expression carved from stone. Then, without a word, he planted his feet slightly wider, shoulders squared, spine straight. His arms relaxed by his sides, hands loose but charged with intent. The stance wasn't flashy, wasn't theatrical, it was dangerous. A deadly quiet settled in the street. Tom didn't need to shout or posture. Every person watching could feel it, his body spoke the language of fighters, the real kind, not performers or bullies. Professionals. The thug's mocking grin twitched. Tom slowly rotated one wrist, then the other, loosening up like preparing for a warm-up, still saying nothing. Phones were out now, dozens. Locals leaned out of second-story windows, shopkeepers held their breath. Even kids hiding behind their parents stepped forward, sensing something different. This was no longer about the shop or the boy, it was bigger. Some whispered, "That's not just some guy. Look at his stance. I've seen that face before, online maybe." But no one spoke loud enough to interrupt. The thug started pacing, bouncing on the balls of his feet, trying to regain control. "You ain't moving. You scared?" he asked, still needling. "Fine, I'll move for you." He lunged without warning, closing the distance in a flash, launching a lightning-quick jab at Tom's nose. A blur. Tom moved, not fast, efficient. He tilted his head just enough for the jab to miss, the punch grazing air where his face had been. At the same time, his right hand lifted, not to strike but to guide the thug's arm past, redirecting the force harmlessly. The thug spun slightly, thrown off balance, but recovered quickly. He snarled, "So you do know how to move. Good." He came again, 2 jabs and a right hook, tight form, trained fists. Tom weaved under the hook, stepped sideways, still no counters, no words. The thug grunted in frustration. "Hit me back, coward." But Tom remained still. He hadn't thrown a single punch. He was reading him, and it showed. The thug's breathing changed, shorter, faster. That grin was gone, replaced with irritation. His crowd was no longer amused, they were watching something unravel. He attacked again, harder, a sharp front kick at Tom's ribs. Tom pivoted, caught the kick midair with his forearm, absorbing the impact without flinching. Then, finally, he struck. A single elbow, lightning fast, hit the thug in the chest like a battering ram, knocking him back 2 steps. It wasn't a wild swing, not loud, just real. And it was only the beginning. The moment Tom's elbow connected, the thug staggered back, more from surprise than pain. His confidence cracked, but only for a breath. Then he roared, "You're dead." He charged, fists fast, tight, disciplined. Years of dojo drills poured into his strikes, a brutal combination, left jab, right cross, low kick, everything sharp, precise, unrelenting. Tom deflected the first few, but the thug was fast, faster than expected. A sharp hook caught Tom on the jaw, his head jerked back, blood tracing his lip. Before he could recover, a front kick slammed into his stomach, driving him 2 steps back toward a row of crates stacked against the storefront. The thug grinned, pressing the attack. A downward hammer fist forced Tom to block high, but the moment he did, a vicious knee slammed into his thigh. Tom grunted, his stance wobbling for half a second. The crowd gasped. "You're not built for this," the thug spat, circling like a wolf. "You came to play hero, but this ain't a movie." He darted in again, a spinning back fist aimed at Tom's temple. Tom ducked, but it clipped the side of his head. His vision blurred as he stumbled sideways, shoulder crashing into a lamppost. He braced, shook it off, reset. But the thug smelled blood. He unleashed a flurry, jabs to the chest, a high kick toward the head, a low sweep to take Tom's legs. Tom jumped back, but not far enough. The thug's shin clipped his ankle, and for a split second, Tom dropped to one knee. The crowd murmured louder. Tom looked up from the pavement, breathing heavy, face bruised. The thug cracked his neck, smirked. "Stay down, man, before you get embarrassed." Tom wiped the blood from his mouth, said nothing, and slowly stood. His feet planted again. The thug's face hardened. He stepped forward, confident, strikes coming faster, heavier. Tom blocked most, but not all. A right cross slammed into his cheek, another knee hit his ribs. His body jerked with the force. He was taking damage, barely keeping ground. But his eyes never looked away. They were studying, waiting. Tom staggered back another step, chest rising and falling, ribs aching, jaw sore, leg sore. The thug advanced, throwing a tight hook. This time, Tom saw it coming. He leaned just enough for the punch to miss and returned fire, fast, compact, driving his knuckles into the thug's exposed side, right below the floating rib. A deep grunt burst from the man as he winced, surprised at the precision. Tom didn't give him time to recover. He stepped in close, too close for the thug's long strikes to land effectively. His elbow cracked against the man's shoulder, then again against his chest. He shifted weight, pivoted, drove his palm up into the underside of the thug's chin. It snapped the man's head back, breaking his rhythm. Tom stayed on him. He grabbed the thug's jacket collar with one hand, used the other to drag him toward a nearby metal post. With a twist of his hips, he slammed the man's back against the steel frame. The thug growled, swung wildly. Tom ducked, used the missed punch's momentum, and shoved him headfirst into a stack of milk crates piled next to the shop. They toppled with a crash. The crowd roared louder, some backing up, others pulling out phones again. The thug scrambled to his feet, dirty, breathing heavier, face twisted in frustration. Tom stepped forward, not fast, not aggressive, just relentless. The thug lunged, throwing a kick. Tom caught it midair. Before the man could counter, Tom swept his other leg out from under him. The thug hit the pavement hard, back first, wind knocked from his lungs. Tom stood over him for half a second. They locked eyes. That was the first moment the thug's face showed something new, fear. He rolled to the side, scrambled to his feet, swung a pipe he'd picked up from the debris, desperation fueling his movement. Tom sidestepped, ducked under the swing, drove a vicious knee into the thug's stomach, then grabbed the pipe midair, twisted it from his hand, and tossed it away without looking. Tom's movements were tighter now, sharper, every strike targeted, every block precise. He wasn't just hitting harder, he was thinking faster. The thug, once dominant, now looked slow, sloppy. And Tom was just getting started. The thug backed up 3 steps, sweat dripping, chest heaving. The crowd that once watched in awe now murmured with uncertainty. He wiped his mouth, blood mixing with spit. "You think this proves something?" he barked, voice cracking. "You're just lucky." But his eyes told the truth, he was shaken. He lunged again, throwing wild punches, sloppy, heavy, uncoordinated. Tom slipped both with ease, barely needing to counter. The thug's movements had lost structure. He was throwing everything, hoping something would land. Tom parried a lazy kick and punished the opening, a stiff punch to the gut, followed by a snapping elbow to the shoulder. The thug winced, staggered sideways, reached for balance on a fruit cart, but slipped on a fallen apple, stumbling awkwardly. Laughter rippled through the crowd. He looked around, realizing the shift. The power he'd commanded, the fear, was fading. People watched differently now, less fear, more hope. He panicked, grabbing a loose broom from a nearby alley, swinging it like a bat, screaming in frustration. Tom caught the wooden handle mid-swing, yanked it forward, forcing the thug off balance. He crashed into a trash bin, rolled to his knees, groaned. Tom stepped forward, unshaken. The thug pushed himself up, legs shaky. His punches came faster but messier, one grazed Tom's jaw, the rest hit air. His footwork was gone, his control was gone. He was unraveling in real time, and he knew it. Tom ducked a final swing, grabbed the man's arm, twisted it at the elbow, and shoved him back toward the center of the street. No retaliation came this time, just heavy breathing and panic. The thug's chest heaved, sweat poured, his black belt hung loose, barely holding together the mess he'd become. Tom moved, not fast, just certain. He closed the distance in 2 silent steps, then struck. His elbow came up like a piston, smashing into the thug's jaw with a thunderous crack. The man's head snapped sideways, spit and blood spraying as his legs gave out. He dropped, barely catching himself on one knee. Tom grabbed him by the back of the shirt, no hesitation, no mercy. With one violent twist of his hips, he hurled the thug across the pavement. His body slammed sideways into a steel gate with a metallic clang, the echo rippling through the alleyway like a bell toll. The crowd gasped. The thug slumped, breathless, ribs cracked, arms limp. Tom approached, step by step, like a shadow moving through dust. The thug lifted his head with effort, eyes dazed, lips split, blood dribbling from his chin. He tried to rise. Tom didn't let him. He stepped in and, with surgical precision, delivered the final blow, a brutal roundhouse kick to the chest. It landed with a thud that seemed to shake the ground. The thug's body flew backward, hit the pavement hard, limbs spread, unmoving. Silence. Phone stopped recording, mouth stopped whispering. No applause, only stunned awe. Tom stood still, chest rising and falling, eyes locked on the body before him. The black belt was broken. Justice delivered. For a moment, the street stood still, not a breath, not a whisper. The thug lay crumpled, motionless, chest rising in shallow, broken rhythm. The steel gate echoed from the impact, the sound hanging like smoke. People who'd been frozen in fear stared in disbelief. It wasn't just that someone had beaten him, it was how. With precision, control, power they'd never seen. Then murmurs began. "Did you see that elbow?" He didn't even say a word. "Who is that guy?" A man lowered his phone, still recording. "That was the cleanest fight I've ever seen." No one dared cheer, no one clapped. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was reverence. Tom stood still, eyes on the fallen man for a few more seconds. Then, without fanfare, he turned. The teen was still on the sidewalk, curled into himself, holding his broken arm with his good hand. His face was pale, twisted with pain, but his eyes stayed open, locked on the man who'd stepped in when no one else did. Tom crouched beside him. "Let's get you out of here." A nearby driver, who'd watched from his parked rickshaw, jumped out, opened the passenger door. Tom gently helped the boy up, one arm across his shoulder, supporting him with care. The crowd parted, people who'd watched, recorded, whispered now stepped back with respect. Tom eased the boy into the seat, ensuring he was secure. "Take him to the nearest clinic," Tom told the driver. The man nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Right away." The teen's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "Thank you. For everything." Tom nodded once, closed the door, tapped the roof. The engine revved, the rickshaw pulled off, and the street exhaled.